So I recently looked up the most popular Mother's Day card messages of 2026. And here are the top 4 in no particular order. Love you to the moon and back, Mom. Everything I am is because of you. Thank you. Thank you for being the best mom ever. And lastly, home is where your mom is. Okay, love you to the moon and back with the recent successful Artemis trip? Okay, that's a good one. I like that one. Everything I am is because of you? Really? Everything? Maybe you inherited your mother's teeth and you got a crooked smile now. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for everything. And what about Dad? Didn't Dad do something too? How about we just say, thank you? Then there's best mom ever. Ever? Come on. How would you even begin to rank mothers? Home is where your mom is. Well, sometimes we had working mothers, and maybe our fathers were at home, or maybe our homes were broken and unhappy. A colleague of mine who serves a congregation on the East Coast had a rough childhood. She was abused and neglected by her alcoholic mother. By her early teenage years, my colleague grew depressed, began drinking, and by the age of 14 was alcoholic. She attempted to end her life several times. Her mental decline was directly related to her mother's lack of basic love and care. Fortunately for her, her mother, alcoholic mother, recognized this and started to put her own life back together. By the end of high school, home life began to stabilize, and my colleague had wanted to help people, and she decided to become a nurse. She got straight A's in all her courses, but once clinicals started, she essentially flunked out. You see, she cared about the patients and wanted to spend time with them and just wanted to talk and help heal their emotional and spiritual wounds more so than their physical wounds. She had no idea what a minister or a chaplain was because she grew up in an atheist household. In her family, religion was the butt of jokes. She had no idea. But then her aunt died, actually by suicide, and she went to an AA meeting at a UU church. And she learned about this idea of universal salvation, that all people, whether dying by suicide or not, are loved. That we all go back to the same place when we die. She got involved in that UU church and received pastoral care and decided to go to seminary to become a minister. But at one point, at that point, her mother relapsed and started drinking again. My colleague put up neat and clean boundaries and made it very clear that her mother would lose their relationship if she kept drinking. And her mother stopped. And they now have a great relationship. But this yearning to help people as a nurse, then as a UU minister, stemmed from wanting to help her mother. Gives new meaning to that phrase, everything I am is because of you. Our mothers are and were people, not idealized, fantastical comic book heroes. They did what they did. They probably sacrificed more so than any other person on the planet for our lives, and they deserve to be honored and remembered. So let's have a Mother's Day where everyone can recognize the diverse ways of motherhood. which includes, but is not limited to, mothers who give birth and then maybe years later transition to a trans man. The mother whose children were taken from her. The immigrant mothers. The single mothers. The teenage mothers. Children with two mothers. And all the different ways to be a mother. Many of us here may remember Janet Green. She was a longtime member, and she died in the year 2020. She loved being a nurse. She worked at an STD clinic, a hospital, a public health nurse, Planned Parenthood, and in retirement as a hospice volunteer. She told us wonderful stories of riding ambulance in Montreal and the births and surgeries without much equipment or doctors present in Newfoundland. She loved social hour, and was just a great fun person to be around. But slowly over time, we saw dementia emerge in her. In the beginning, for the most part, she could carry on, but then she began to get confused easily, and it got to the point where she didn't know who I was anymore. There were many, many people who cared for her and still care for her here. Janet eventually moved to Colorado to be closer to her daughter, Joanne. It was difficult. It was difficult to see Janet go. But I wonder now what it was like for her daughter to lose your mother before she dies. It was painful for me, her minister. What would it have been like for her daughter? Because sometimes our parents leave us before they leave us. And connected to that is the whole aspect of caring for our mothers as they age. It's a real role reversal where we mother our mothers. Then there's the grief of our mothers dying. We all know that this is the natural sequence of life. Yet our mother brought us into the world, and in most cases loved us into being, cared for us when we were helpless, and nourished us with her own body. Our mothers are often our first relationship. Quite literally, our mothers are our history. They hold memories we cannot. So we lose our past when we lose our mothers. Maybe more so than our fathers, part of us dies when our mothers die. We are so intertwined with our mothers, whether we like to admit it or not. Or maybe our relationship with them was less than ideal. Maybe we have regrets. Whatever it is, losing a mother is difficult. And all the complicated emotions that follow that loss, they are normal. I wish I could offer up some magic formula of comfort for the grief that follows, however it is we lose our mothers. But this is the best thing I think I can say. The only way out is through. The only way out is through. Take the time to process these complex emotions. Ask to speak with me or someone on the pastoral care team. Be kind to yourselves. For the gentle, time-honored path ahead is a winding, reoccurring road called acceptance. A colleague and friend of mine, the Reverend Kimberly Debus, lives in Tacoma Park, Maryland, and she writes, "What about women like me who are intentionally child-free? I am not a mother. I have no children, either those I have been born or those, or either those I have born or those I have adopted or fostered. I don't have any spiritual or emotional children either. There is no one in my life who calls me mom for any reason, and that is by choice. But most people are willing and eager, in fact, to emphasize how I give birth to creative projects and mother in other ways. It's as though we are incomplete as women if we don't have some sort of children, or at the very least, some impulse for children. Women like me struggle a bit with this day, finding a particular pressure to fit into the model of mother when they are most assuredly not mothers. So how do we all find our place on a day like today? How can we redeem Mother's Day and make it a day for all of us? Her solution is to turn to one of our ancestors, Julia Ward Howe. Today is a reminder to all of us to work for peace so that children around the world are free of war and that future generations live on without that fear. Especially at a time like this, I think we can all agree that war is ludicrous. We learned this week that the low estimate of our war with Iran was $25 billion, but yet we supposedly can't fund health care or child care. War brings loss of innocent life, and in this case, our country's loss of moral credibility in the world. Perhaps mothers can bring people together for the cause of peace because they have such a stake in the future. But really, don't we all? I used to do these thought experiments like, what if I had a different mother? What if my mother was a theologian like Catherine Keller, or a musician like Alice Coltrane? What would I have become then? We can't expect our mothers to be everything to us. Sometimes we realize we have other mothers, those who nurtured us intellectually and or professionally in ways that our biological mothers could not. They deserve a thank you today as well. My solution to redeem Mother's Day is to get rid of the greatest mother of all time language. Let's simply honor the diversity of motherhood for who they are. Ordinary, flawed people who do the best they can. But regular people doing ordinary things can still lead to extraordinary impact on people's lives. I was an oops child. My mom had 2 daughters, and my sisters are much older than I am. and then she had a miscarriage. She thought she couldn't have children anymore and always wanted a son. I wasn't supposed to be, but here I am. When I saw her and spent time with her in February, she told me an oh so familiar story. The story was an allusion to the prophet Samuel's birth from the Hebrew Scriptures. Hannah was a barren woman, and in her deep anguish prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly, making a vow, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life. After weaning her son, Hannah took Samuel, her son, and presented him to the high priest Eli at the tabernacle of Shiloh, and said, so now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord. My mother told me that after I was born, she gave me back to the Lord in a very similar prayer. She told me she was not surprised that I had become a minister, and it dawned on me in that moment that she had been telling me this story periodically over my entire childhood. The seeds of calling had already been planted in me by the time a recruiter from a Lutheran preparatory school when I was about 12 years old came and talked about calling, a special calling to serve the Lord, and my heart leaped. My mother loves kids, and in the 1980s, before pre-K and 4-year-old kindergarten was a thing, I remember being home with her when I was about 4 years old. She also retired early to care for my sister's kids. There's something about children that just lights her way. Now, I don't agree with her theological conclusions and other assumptions, and at times she drives me nuts. I do not have the closest relationship with my mother, but she took me to church consistently. She showed me what faith means and gave of what she could, a place in life for me and a calling. Thank you, Mom.